I do not know enough about Latin American history to be able to say why more Latin American countries did not embrace the Chilean model. Within your own neighborhood, you have a country which has for 30 or 40 years succeeded beyond wildest dreams, and yet very few countries seem to be opting for that model. Instead, a lot of countries in Latin America seem to be opting for models that are demonstrably failures. We are talking about Venezuela. And people say, oh, well, we don't want to go to Venezuela. Yes, but the policies which you are pursuing could very well result in Venezuela. You've got Nicaragua, you've got Cuba, you've got the very sad long-term decline of the Argentine economy.
Policy makers.
Well, Chile is obviously an example in Latin America of a country that was one of the poorest countries in Latin America as late as the 1960s and the 1970s. And then, because of economic reforms that have been implemented from 1970s onwards, first under the administration of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, but later by democratically elected government, this has turned Chile into the richest country in Latin America. Now, why did that happen? It didn't happen because the government was heavily involved in the economy. It happened because the government of Chile has agreed to trade liberalization with the rest of the world. It had a very sane, very conservative monetary and fiscal policy. And basically, Chileans became much freer. First, in the economic sphere, because obviously politics was still dominated by the military junta. But later, after 1990, Chile was not only economically free, but it was also politically free. And as a result of that, Chile has really become something of an example for the rest of Latin America to follow.
Y le tuvieron que poner palito para que no se manche.
Lolichop, el único chocolate con palito.
And in recent years, we have seen a very interesting, sociologically, but also very dangerous episode in Chilean history, where the government basically lost its nerve. It has given in to the most radical demands of people who have never embraced the Chilean model, people who always wanted back those Allende years, those socialist. That socialist dream of the early 1970s. And as a result of that, Chile is now undergoing a very dangerous process of rewriting a constitution, which could result in a constitution that will not guarantee high economic growth, quite the contrary, which may slow economic growth and then eventually turn Chile into a typical Latin American country with very low growth rates or even decreasing growth rates. My book, 10 Global Trends, really looks at 78 long-term trends, but we find that 10 of them are really quite important. And what we look at is long-term trends. In other words, when you look at human well-being, especially over the last 200 years, that's the important part, is that the world was a very static and very poor place for thousands of years. And it's only in the last 200 years that the world had started improving. But that line of improvement is not smooth, it is jagged. Things go up and down, up and down, up and down, which is to say that humans often take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. This is one of those episodes where the line of progress is experiencing a bit of a jagged downward trend, but it will, I hope, get back on the upward trajectory. Life expectancy is incredibly important. It's the most important trend. Obviously, if you're not alive, then nothing else matters, right?
And nothing else matters.
So what we are interested in is seeing human beings live as long as possible. Now, since the birth of agriculture 12,000 years ago until about 200 years ago, life expectancy around the world was about 30 years, and that hasn't changed. And then in 1800s, life expectancy started to increase by 3 months per year, which is why today, globally, life expectancy is about 72 years. In the United States, about 78 years. But in the last 2 years in the United States, definitely life expectancy has actually dropped a little bit. That has happened before on 1 or 2 occasions, but it is not something that is obviously positive. In other words, life expectancy in the United States has been increasing. Now it has declined by a few months, and hopefully we need to get back on that smooth upward path. So that's just an example of a very important trend that is improving over the long run, but can experience a bit of a decline. And so I would simply say, overcome your national pride. When you see other countries doing good things, copy them. Maybe you cannot copy them fully, but learn from what other countries have done well. I'm from Eastern Europe. I was born in communist Czechoslovakia, and when the communist wall fell down, we learned the best practices from Western economies. Some countries have done a great job. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania have become very, very wealthy as a result. Czech Republic, Poland even Slovakia to some extent. But we have learned from other people because we realized that we didn't have all the knowledge that we could learn from the knowledge of others. And I think that that's the reason why so many people in the world today are very upset, very, very pessimistic, is because there are a lot of things happening in the world which are not going in the right direction. Obviously, we had 2 years of COVID. Very few people expected that to happen. Then we had the demand and the supply shock to the global economy. We are experiencing inflation, largely caused by government spending too much money and printing too much money. And we just need to sort of look back and see what we did right and then return back to that.
Policymakers, segunda temporada.